I was there to search for documents that might reveal what the oil industry knew about climate change and when. On my last day, I pulled a book off the shelf. It was a transcript of a conference held by the American Petroleum Institute in 1959. Now, the American Petroleum Institute is the main organization for the oil and gas industry in the United States. But 1959 seemed way too early for anything about climate change, I thought. When I turned the pages, I was shocked. I saw a speech by the famous physicist Edward Teller, the one who'd helped develop the hydrogen bomb. And in that speech, he warned the oil industry about global warming, predicting that if fossil fuels continued to be used, all the coastal cities would be covered by rising oceans. He even calculated how much carbon dioxide we'd have in the air by the year 2000. And he was almost exactly right. His bottom line message, fossil fuels would have to be replaced. In 1968, the American Petroleum Institute hired scientists to look at the problem privately, and they confirmed the warning that business as usual would lead to climate change by the year 2000, and the damage to our environment, they warned, could be severe. Despite this awareness, companies like Exxon, Chevron, and Shell continued to expand their fossil fuel production. Now, 1960 might sound like a long time ago, and in many ways it is, but here's the catch. In the world of energy, when a refinery or a pipeline or a power plant is built, it often remains in operation for decades, even 50 years or more. So that means decisions made in 1960 can still affect us today. One set of papers describes a meeting held by the American Petroleum Institute in 1980. Personnel from Exxon and the companies that later became Chevron and BP were there. And they'd invited a researcher from Stanford University to brief them about the state of climate science. At the end of the presentation, one of the researcher's slides said, 1 degree rise, 2005, barely noticeable. 2.5 degree rise, 2038. Major economic consequences, strong regional dependence. 5 degree rise, 2067. Globally catastrophic effects. Around the same time, Exxon's researchers found that 80% of fossil fuels needed to be left in the ground, and renewable energy needed to start replacing fossil fuels soon, or climate change would have serious consequences. An internal report at Exxon warned of rising seas, coastal flooding, and mass migration and displacement around the globe. That report also predicted precisely how quickly carbon dioxide would build up, and how much global warming would occur throughout our century if the industry didn't change course. Today, we know the industry did not change course, and the predictions in that report have become strikingly accurate. By 1980, Big Oil had been on notice about global warming for at least 20 years, and it understood that the time for action had arrived. So too did an increasing number of scientists. In history, it was a fork in the road, and one with centuries-long consequences. Around the same time oil companies were warned that climate change could have globally catastrophic effects, they began speaking in public about the issue. But instead of raising the alarm, Big Oil hit snooze, enacting a campaign of distraction and delay. Fossil fuel industry created a group called the Global Climate Coalition. But it wasn't an environmental organization like it might sound. Instead, the group cast doubt about climate change, helping to create large-scale climate denial as we know it today. And it also fought laws and treaties that would have helped to prevent global warming. The Global Climate Coalition operated until about 2002. After that, oil companies often avoided denying climate change outright, but they continued to lobby against fossil fuel controls and to expand their own fossil fuel production. Today, many oil and gas companies advertise themselves as environmentally friendly and showcase the research they fund at universities, even though, over the last decade, oil majors have spent only a few % of their investments in renewable energy. and the rest, the vast majority, tens of billions of dollars per year in more fossil fuels, which the companies plan to sell to us over the coming decades. So, where does this leave us? This is the story of how we got here. What we do now, of course, is up to us. I said at the beginning that I want this message to empower you. Empower you with the knowledge of how we ended up where we are. In this history, the biggest idea that jumps out at me is this: we didn't have to take this path. The solution to global warming has been clear for longer than many of us have been alive. Replace fossil fuels with clean sources of energy. Oil and gas companies and their allies delayed that solution by failing to warn the public and by instead spreading disinformation and doubt, by expanding their own fossil fuel production, and by blocking laws that would have helped prevent global warming. Our past and our present situation were not predestined, and neither is our future. The choices that led to decades of delay, and now to a climate crisis, were often made without our knowledge. Now we know what's happened, and we can change course.